What's up, everybody? It's Jeremy Minnick with the Game Changing Roofer Podcast, a show created to share the stories of roofers who are changing the game in the roofing industry. This show is meant to help roofers build better businesses and better lives. Today, we've got a special guest, Larry Ergo with All Claims Pro, a public adjusting firm based in Virginia. Larry broke into the insurance industry by accident and quickly realized the profitability and scalability of the insurance restoration industry. He started his public adjuster company in 2015 and was able to quickly go from zero to well beyond six figures. And he's here on the show today to shed some light on how roofing companies can break into the insurance restoration market, which is a gold mine of opportunity. But before we jump into that, just real quick, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you doing?
Good, man. Good. It's been pretty crazy with all this coronavirus stuff, man. What do you?
It sure has. It sure has.
Think about all of it.
Well, you know, it is definitely crazy. There's not a whole lot of things that I can see that affect, especially the insurance restoration industry in general. Typically, when things like this happen, when there's market corrections or anything like that, insurance claims still happen. There's still storms happening. People's houses still burn or flood. So natural disasters are always occurring, or man-made disasters. But this is different. This is a little interesting, just solely because of how the aspect of individuals, they don't want to be near other people, which definitely throws a wrench in business.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because, I mean, in the one sense, obviously with the actual health side of it all, you know, I think it's better to have a mindset of, you know, we took the proactive measures, we took the precautions, and we were in the clear versus, man, we really messed that one up. But maybe the crazier thing is in the case of this coronavirus is just obviously how people are responding, right? And sort of watching how do homeowners, how do business owners, how are people just kind of reacting in general. And I think would love to hear your thoughts, you know, kind of in the public adjuster roofing home services space. You know, what do you feel like is kind of the mindset that home service company business owners should be having in times like these?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think it's interesting. Everyone has an opinion on the coronavirus right now. Obviously, some people believe it's extremely bad. Some people do not. And there's a lot of, I think, information that we're not privy to or don't have all the details on. So I'm definitely not a doctor and can't speak on that. But what I would say is perception becomes reality. So the way the public is perceiving things is having that detrimental effect, whether the disease is or the infection is as bad as some claim it is. So I think that's definitely happening. You can probably see it in different towns, cities. I know I've spoken with my family and other people, and they're already starting to see effects of businesses suffering, individuals suffering from the perception of how bad this could be. But my thought on it is this. I think as far as the insurance restoration business, we're still getting call-ins right now for claims coming in, which is great. But especially for roofers in general, I'm thinking it's something I've been preaching about for a while. I've definitely mentioned it to a lot of the different people I talk to in my circles, which is online marketing is something that I think needs to be heavily pushed. Social media marketing, targeting certain areas that have storm damage or where these disasters are still occurring, where there's windstorms, hailstorms, and really turning that on. I think you're going to see a big difference between some of the companies right now that are maybe younger or maybe not younger, but more savvy when it comes to the social media, the tech side of things, and more from your traditional roofer, traditional marketing. Because right now, traditional marketing, in my opinion, is not working. It's not gonna handle. So people aren't opening their doors. People don't want you walking up to them and doing face-to-face things in person. So the social media marketing is something that I think right now needs to be ramped up. And the other side of that is, I think I was saying you're going to see a big difference between different companies. Now is the time to really get ahead. If you want to really maximize this, there's going to be a lot of distraction. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of timidness as far as what the future is going to hold. So as far as how to push, people are going to be there's right now two things happen. People get more risky or they get less risky, and they button up. So lots and lots of people make a lot of money during times like this. And I think this industry is no different. I think there's an opportunity here to really grab it by the horns, that I think a lot will capitalize on and a lot won't.
Yeah, I think those are great points. I feel like the first one is on the social media, side of things. I mean, I definitely do agree. Sort of won't reflect too long on those points, though I do agree with you. The ability to target people in specific geographic neighborhoods, get hyper specific geographically, show up on their phones and mobile devices as they have plenty of time these days to be sitting at their home, and to be able to have a consult over Google Hangouts or over a meeting link or over the phone. And also the ability for many roofers to be able to basically deliver a quote without even going on site, at least be able to do that somewhat accurately and reliably, at least in a time like this. So even if that's not your normal process, there's a lot of tools out there that can help you, take aerial shots of the roof and basically deliver a quote from afar. So there's all these kind of technologies and ways to reach people as they sit on the couch. But I think that maybe the bigger one for sort of all people who are going to be listening to this, and the business owners especially, is the mindset. And I'll quickly kind of share a story. I was listening to a podcast last night from a guy who runs a legal video marketing company called Crisp Video out of Atlanta. Mike Mogul is the CEO of this company. And he kind of shared this story. This had nothing to do with a time of like pandemic or anything like that, but more of just a time when, from a sales perspective, the sales team was way short of their numbers and they had some big ground to make up. So they were in the middle of July. They're 2 weeks into July, and their sales goal was basically 500,000. And 2 weeks into July, they had 12 grand. And so they met together as a sales team. And I think where most companies, would enter that meeting is just to say, how can we kind of get close to this? I mean, how can we just at least make up some of the ground before we turn into August? And that's not this guy's mindset at all. So he met with the sales team. Within a week, they had hit 500 or 600.
Wow.
And by the end of the month, they hit 1.1 million.
Wow.
In sales. And what he just kind of pointed out is just like, these are maybe the micro and kind of pivotal moments in a business when like you either get backed up against the wall and you go, you know what, we're just not going to be as committed as we originally were. We're going to kind of sacrifice our goals and sacrifice what we want. Or you go and have the mindset of, there is just no sacrifice. There's no scarcity mindset. We will find a way to grow in this time and hit our goals, or maybe even double them. And it just kind of, that confidence builds upon each other. So I think it's just so important for business owners in these moments. Maybe you have like the first 10-second reaction of, man, this is going to be tough for my business. And you need to take that 10 seconds and kind of go, oh, and then you need to spend every other waking breath, figuring out how are you going to push through this and get your team to really lock in.
And not even just push through it. I think there's opportunity here that may have been missed or not available during better times.
Right.
I 100% agree with you. I think it's fortunate we live in an awesome era where the technological aspects can make it so you can have an in-person meeting not in person over the internet. And the other beautiful thing about the roofing industry is it's all exterior, so you're not dealing with issues inside people's homes. So from that mindset, there is bridges there that are already available to anybody who wants to use them to move further down the line. So
right.
Yeah, absolutely. Mindset is the critical point that I think we're discussing. It is absolutely going to be the game changing. If you don't have the mindset correct, then it doesn't matter what technology you're using or not using. The mindset is everything.
Right. Yeah, totally. And in terms of kind of practical tips and things like that, I saw that Lee Haight had a webinar. He actually pulled together a bunch of roofing experts and roofing company owners and things like that, put together kind of a PowerPoint webinar presentation of like 5 strategies for roofers to really kind of push through this time and how they can generate leads and keep doing business. So in the show notes, I'll make sure to share that, because I think that's going to be, super valuable to help people practically kind of navigate through all this. But now that we've solved the coronavirus problems, now we've unlocked COVID-19 for all of us. Yeah, man, let's jump into basically kind of your story. Just quickly, Larry and myself go back a little while. He's actually been a client for almost about 5 years now. We built a website for him to kick him off. After that, we a couple of years later, we rebranded the entire company from logo and kind of branding and name and website and different things like that, and still basically market for him today. So been a great friend, great client of mine. And anyway, so that's my side of the story. But today would love to hear your story and sort of how did you get into public adjusting? How did you find that path and ultimately choose this kind of as a career?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate the introduction. You and your team have been awesome to work with over the past 5 years. So, All Claims Pro would not be where it is without your help, Jeremy. So, I very much appreciate it.
Thanks,
but as far as my story and where it kind of begins, it can go back. I would say it really kicks off during my high school time, right? So, I grew up in a family of six kids, so a family of 8. And I played hockey. I learned to play hockey at a young age. That was my love, my passion. I can remember wanting to play or having a stick in my hand from as long back as possible. As I was learned to walk, I learned to skate. So grew up playing hockey in North Carolina. It's not well known for its hockey down in the South, or at least it wasn't when I was a kid. So I knew I was going to have to, if I wanted to further that dream, I was going to have to probably leave home and go somewhere to do that. And just like any young kid, everyone's dream is to play in the NHL someday. And mine was no different. So I ended up going up to a boarding school up in Canada, Athol Murray College of Notre Dame, phenomenal hockey school, pumps out plenty of NHLers and Hall of Famers. And they're exceptionally known for hockey. It's in the middle of nowhere. But as a kid, that didn't concern me. Being up 300 miles south of the Arctic Circle in the middle of nowhere was not my concern. I was excited to go play hockey and really hope this was going to be my ticket to hopefully a college scholarship and maybe even a professional career. So I went up there when I was 14 for the first time, and when I was 15, I got in a really bad hockey accident. I got hit from behind. And I got a very, very severe concussion that caused lots of issues. My speech was messed up. I had to kind of relearn to walk and talk in a sense. I was in and out of the hospital, in and out of healthcare for a long time up there. Went through plenty of different therapies to regain my speech patterns, to get rid of headaches, other psychological things that kind of occur when your brain gets rattled. And unfortunately, I ended my hockey career. So that was a very hard thing for me as a 15-year-old kid. So I stayed up there. I came home actually for a while and recovered, and then I went back just because I believed it was a great place. It was good. I had made a lot of friends up there and wanted to continue. So I went back up there, finished out. I graduated, but was kind of lost. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I couldn't really do much contact sports at that time, so I got really into track and field, and I ended up running at the provincial level up there, which was awesome, and that was really special. But it wasn't something that I would say I shared the same passion for that I did with hockey. So I talked to my parents about hopefully maybe being able to go to college up there and staying up there, and they wanted me to come back down to the United States. So after a little bit of back and forth, a little bickering on my end, I didn't follow any of the track and field scholarships, and I came back and I went to school at Christendom College in Front Royal, Virginia. And it was great. I met lots of good friends there. and lots of good people. The friends were amazing. The teachers were awesome people. But the problem was not anything external. It was an internal issue that I was struggling with, which was I really had a lack of identity, a lack of focus on anything of any importance. So I did what most people do in college. I drank a little too much and I partied with my friends a little too much, and didn't really care to learn or focus or really try to find myself, and not trying to be corny, but really find who I am as a man. What is it that drives me? What is it, something that I have a passion for? So during that time, I remember I was I was walking back from class with my older cousin. He was a year above me, and this kid came, who was at school with us, and he kept coming up to my cousin and I and saying, "Hey, I got this awesome job opportunity to go knock doors, and you just need people to sign on this line and get paid $50 for every door you get knocked." We're all like, "Go away, leave us alone!" Like, after about week 5 of this kid like pestering us, my cousin finally decides, like, all right, you know what, if you'll go away, I will come out with you one day and come knock doors. um so that's what happened. He did, and he came back, and I was ready for him to kind of rip into it, or just tell me some funny stories or something, and he was like, no, this is the real deal, man. I just walked away with $300 today, and in college, that's a big deal. I mean, I was working maintenance for, I think, $7.25 on campus, $7.25, in case anyone was wondering what that number means. Uh, and $300 sounded really, really nice because I made
Yeah,
like
yeah.
20.
When you're in college, yeah, that might as well be 30 grand.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You can buy
That's a lot of McChickens.
a lot of McChickens, a couple cases of beer. Yeah, you're rocking and rolling. So I was like, I gotta go check this out for myself, and so I did. So I met with the owner of a local roofing company that was in insurance restoration. There was kind of, it wasn't super popular where we are in Virginia. Never heard of it before, and I started working with them as a canvasser while I was in college. So I went through college, and I ended up getting into a lot of trouble and still not really focused, but I was doing this on the side, and it was great money. I could go out and canvas after classes, and I always had enough beer money, or money for fast food and all the amenities that you need in college. But I wasn't really focused on schooling. Academics were never a problem for me. I never really struggled with getting good grades, but I really did not like the classroom. Like, that was not my best learning situations. But I did like going outside, and I did like talking to people and doing the door to door thing. And it became kind of a game for me to see how many leads can I get and really push myself. So while I was in college, I got, like I said earlier, I got into some trouble, and it ended up costing me my time there. I eventually got kicked out for taking alcohol from the teachers' offices, and it was very demoralizing and hard for me. So I didn't know what to do from there. I got kicked out, and I went straight to, I think that day, went straight to the boss of the company and said, hey, listen, I didn't tell him I got kicked out of school. I think I just told him I'm available much more now. So if you got any position here that I can move up into some kind of sales position or something, and above just canvassing, I'd be very interested in it. And so we did. So I worked with them for a while. I would say probably about 6 months after I got kicked out of school. And I remember I ran into a guy who worked for a company called Hancock Claims Consultants. They're a ladder assist company. And I was up on a roof with him. And he was like, hey man, like, how you doing? How you like contracting? And I was like, it's good, man. Everything's been fine. And he was like, well, you should really come check this out. You can make a lot of money doing this. And at that time I money sounded nice, and thought that'd be cool. And I was single, or I wasn't single. I was dating my girlfriend, but I wasn't married or anything, and didn't have any commitments to a family or anything at that time. So I could travel a little bit for the job. And so I took it, and that's exactly what I did. I worked for Hancock Claims Consultants, and I traveled around the country to different storm areas. And we were hired by the insurance company to kind of be the eyes and ears of the insurance adjuster up on the roof. And I did that, and we were considered experts in our field. Though I was a 20-year-old kid that just kind of got told I was an expert, so it kind of went to my head. I thought I was the big guy walking around, and I quickly started to realize that we weren't experts. I felt more of like a puppet in a sense because I thought the industry just seemed there was issues with kind of how it was run. And I wouldn't say it was any specifics. I don't think it was Hancock or anyone from my team or any specific adjusters, but there was just kind of this underlying theory that you do what the insurance company wants because they're the one that pay you. They pay your bill. So, and it's just human nature that you're going to tend to follow that, and you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. So, while I was traveling out in Chicago, I ran into a lot of public adjusters out there, and it was interesting. It was kind of a breath of fresh air to see somebody kind of representing the homeowner, the policyholder in those situations. And again, I was a 20-year-old kid, and just seemed interesting. And I'd ask them some questions, and the more I learned, the more I was intrigued by it. And it wasn't until I was working, I remember a very specific case in Chicago, and there was an old lady's house, and it had some significant damage to the roof. I saw it. I knew it was. I had been on other roofs in the neighborhood that day that were being paid for because of the damage. And this poor old lady filed an insurance claim. She didn't have a public adjuster, and we were out there, and the adjuster asked me to zero it out, so not find any damage. And I remember thinking, like, that is a very crooked thing in my mind. It seemed very one-sided. It didn't give that homeowner an honest opinion of their policy. She had coverage for hail and wind damage, and it was not being given to her. So I left shortly after that and went back to Virginia and continued working for Hancock. And I ran into another public adjuster in Maryland. And he was great. He gave me all the advice in the world. I asked him after one of the claims with him if I could just pick his brain for 10 minutes or so. And we ended up talking for about, I think, over an hour. And he was just telling me about the public adjusting field and how lucrative it can be, but also how much good you do for people. So I was sold. So I immediately went home, started studying for the public adjusters test, took it. I left Hancock and got my license. And that kind of kicked me off into the public adjusting world.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. I feel, you've shared that story with me before, but every time I hear it, it just, especially in the moments kind of adversity with your hockey, with, getting booted from school, with some of the other things that, you've faced and kind of gone through, just that never take no for an answer, never give up mentality. And even though maybe there were moments of kind of rock bottomness or, not feeling like you're high on life, you just kept pushing. And also had, I think, what many people would, envy, which is an open mindset, a mindset always seeking, and evaluating where's the opportunity. So I think there's a lot of people who at different junctures of where you were in your decision-making process. For example, hey, I work for a roofing company. I'm doing sales. This is a great spot to be. And by the way, like, it probably would have been, right? I mean, you probably could have made a killing doing sales. You probably could have pushed forward on that front, honed your craft, et cetera. But at the same time, you kind of had the eyes to say, hey, there's an opportunity over here with Hancock Claims and this ladder assist thing. And then you're there, and rather than, having that other guy who was a public adjuster, you said?
Yeah.
Rather than just sort of saying, whatever, man, you're probably full of it in terms of the opportunity that is provided through public adjusting. You had that open mindset, the ears to listen and say, hey, maybe there's really something to this, and then you looked into that and you just did it. You didn't let fear of, I don't know how to do that, or fear of, I'm not an expert in that yet, hold you back. You just went for it. I mean, that's just awesome. It's just awesome mindset to have.
Well, thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, no, I definitely think that is something that I'm fortunate to kind of have that. I think I kind of grew up in kind of an entrepreneurial family. My parents are small business owners, and kind of instilled that in me to always think outside the box and push. So it's definitely something that I've been fortunate enough to kind of have come natural to me in that sense. And exactly what you said earlier. I mean, I think sales is kind of my natural fit. I think that's kind of what I do best. And what I've come to realize through all this, everything is sales. Everything is relationship in that sense. You always hear people say business is business, right? But I don't necessarily agree with that. Business is relationships, and that's been something that I've been fortunate to have and make, which is great relationships. Just being on this podcast with you is an attribute to the, or a obvious sign of that. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. And so I think this is a good moment. Let's kind of pivot for a second. So, obviously shared the story. You went from basically, okay, college kid canvassing into sales guy for a roofing company, into working for a ladder assist company, into finally finding your way to public adjusting. Now you're in public adjusting. You're kind of kicking off this business. You're just getting started. You've shared with me before, basically, that it wasn't necessarily immediate and utter overnight success, but at the same time, you found success, pretty quickly in some sort of a niche within the public adjusting industry, and that niche is basically insurance restoration as it relates to roofing. So I think a lot of people, when they think of public adjusting, think of the big time fire claims, the big time water damage,
Yep.
remediate, like all these different kind of remediation type of restoration claims. But
Yep.
you found a real pocket and niche within basically hail and wind roofing related insurance claims, and have basically been able to share this process and this system with a couple of roofing companies. So would love to hear maybe kind of the stories of how you brought this idea of insurance restoration to a couple of roofing businesses. And then after that, we'll kind of unpack how can a roofing company that's not doing insurance or working with a public adjuster yet, how can they basically start to break into that system? But yeah, tell us about those companies that you worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got good knowledge on the facts of the lineage of how everything played out. I'm impressed. But so I got my public adjuster's license, and I immediately sat down and just thought about what is it that I'm good at. And I had plenty of experience in roofing sales, and for a contracting company, from the canvassing all the way up. And then the experience with the claim side of things as well. So I knew that was by far, as far as claims go, the most knowledgeable subject I could talk on. So I wanted to really hyper focus on that, which was very different from, like you said, a lot of the other public adjusters who focus on fire claims and water claims. And we do, our firm now at this point, it does handle all of that. But still, my personal focus and what has shown me the most success is definitely that in the roofing industry with storm related claims. So I kind of kicked that off with kind of putting together a model for myself on, if I was a contractor, or I guess even before that, I'm a public adjuster. How am I going to get business? I can market online and I can wait for people to call me, but there's all these roofers walking around that are trying to sell roofs retail, or some of them are actually doing the insurance thing, but they don't do it fully, and they didn't know exactly what they were doing, and they're just kind of winging it. So I went to some of the local roofing companies. I actually, after I got my public adjuster's license, went back to the roofing company who I originally worked with, and started running some of their claims. They were all about it, because as a public adjuster, we have a lot of weight. We can argue policy. We become policy experts in that sense. So they were very happy to kind of offload that work to us from the get go. So when I was doing that, I happened to just meet some other roofers and start doing just chatting with them. And I approached them and said, hey, listen, you guys, I remember in particular, one of the owners who came from another company that he crushed sales, and sales was retail. He was selling $40,000 roofs, $20,000, $50,000 roofs to homeowners every day. And these homeowners were paying for those. So I just thought to myself, listen, if he is able to sell this and not just get by, but kill it, if he's able to sell somebody a product for 20, 30, 40K, how much more sales could he increase that by if he was able to convince people to move forward with an insurance claim when they have damage so that it's covered through the insurance process and they're paying their deductible, and then any excess upgrades or something along those lines would be an additional cost. So I approached him and I kind of laid out the model, and I was very fortunate that he was open-minded. He was definitely a big go-getter and a hard worker. And he had all the attributes that I was looking for somebody to kind of teach this process to, or introduce this process to. And he was great because he was truly able to take it and run with it.
And I think just quickly, just before you tell the story, I think of maybe another roofing company or sort of how you got him involved. There's just two things I just really want to point out there. The first one is that, that gentleman also, same as yourself in your story, again, had the open mindset.
Exactly.
The opportunity. And I think, some people outside of the roofing space, I think, look at roofing sales and the roofing business, et cetera. In other words, people just in other industries, friends of people who are roofing sales guys, and they just don't believe that they're actually making this kind of money. They don't believe it. They're just kind of too narrow-minded, and that's just not possible. That couldn't possibly be, but it is. And so that open mindset, again, so key to seeking opportunity. And the second thing, I think, just highlighting a word real quick, you said the word, imagine this guy who can sell a 20, 30, 40K roof. Imagine how many he could sell if he could just convince the homeowner. But that word convince actually stuck out to me because there's actually a little bit of like negative connotation. I think that immediately hits you where you go, oh, so it's a scam then. You've got to sell people on this process. You got to fake them out to make them actually do an insurance-based roof claim. But it's not the reality. That's not what you mean by convince. You just literally mean that what convince means is that most homeowners don't have an open mindset to that this could possibly exist. And basically all I'm trying to point to is just what would you say, just quickly, what are some of the major reasons you feel like roofing company owners have not yet broken into the insurance restoration game?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up these points because it's just something I'm glad we're getting to. I wanted to get to this at some point, so this is a perfect opportunity. I personally have always had this mentality, and a lot of the roofing contractors I mutually have done work with, I try to find people with the same mentality, which is this: say yes first and figure it out later. Keep that open mindset. And that's always served me super well. If you don't know how to do something, say yes to it, because you will learn how to do it. You will figure that out. You don't have a choice at that point. So I think, and to answer your question, the biggest reasons why I think a lot of these roofing contractors haven't is solely for that reason. They don't understand it. They can't completely grasp it. They know there's something going on there, but they may either self-justify it in believing that it's a scam or it's short term. But really what I think it is that lack of ability to say yes to something, just to open their mind to it. And it's costing them a lot of business.
Right. I think that's a great point. And I think as well that, again, a lot of homeowners are skeptical about it all, but I think there's a lot of ways to pretty easily overcome that, as has been showcased by the number of roofing companies that you've worked with, as well as that are just simply out there, especially on coastal regions, Florida.
Absolutely. Coastal regions and the Midwest, where some of these big
right.
tornadoes and hailstorms come through, it can be crazy. But yeah, exactly. I mean, I tell all the roofers that I do consulting work for, or we're working on with a mutual client. The key is, if you can show the homeowner that this isn't real, or that this is real, and if you can make that clear, if you're able to convey your message clearly, there's no reason that the sale shouldn't go through, that they shouldn't proceed. Because I think part of that is they do have a lack of open-mindedness to the idea. And there's something with door-to-door sales. I think a lot of times it comes across, it's a completely cold lead. So they're going to entrust this person who just walked up there promising them a new roof that they don't have to pay for. There's a sense of, it seems too good to be true. Now, I'm not saying everybody gets a roof through their insurance company. That's not the case. People don't have damage. And there are roofers that'll go out there and tell you do have damage and you don't. But that's a very short-term mindset in my mind. I think that the key is that will catch up with them very quickly. And in the long term, they might win that battle, but they'll lose the war, which is completely opposite to the mentality that I have. Being true and honest with a homeowner is what's going to give you the credibility and the respect that will lead to future sales and a lot of future business. So again, I think there is an aspect that a lot of homeowners have, that it might seem too good to be true. But if you just show them, hey, listen, this is the damage that hail damage can do. Here are the photos of your roof that I've taken when I've gone up there and done an inspection, and here's what I'm seeing. We believe an insurance claim could be warranted or should be warranted, and that they should cover the cost of your roof. If you can convey that, why wouldn't somebody sign up for it? You know,
Right.
if you got contractors or salesmen who right now who are going up to people and trying to sell a roof for $20,000, $30,000. Meanwhile, they're competing against other roofing companies because most of these leads are being called in, and most homeowners are getting multiple bids. The sale moves from a defensive sale to an offensive sale. You're educating. You're not just selling. You're educating the customer on what you can offer them, and that goes from what the damage that they have now to the products that you use for your roof. It's all part of the process.
Right. And I think, some of that's awesome. It's a ton of insights there for roofers who are listening to this. I mean, just incredible insights into, the mindset that you've got to have to kind of convince the homeowner. Also, just recognizing the fact that, really what's going to convince a homeowner, same as what's going to convince most people of most sales, is maybe at first, kind of first impressions and the emotional connection that you make. And then beyond that, it's proof, right? So if you can prove that there's damage on the roof, show the photos, show kind of, the paperwork and things like that, and how this insurance process works, even testimonials and reviews from your company of what other people have said. These are all things that build trust, obviously, with the homeowner. And we won't
absolutely. We've done. Our firm personally have worked with over 1,000 clients. Like we've rock and rolled when it comes to the roofing industry, as that's typically our focus. I would say 90% of our business, maybe 85, is storm related claims, and I think our reviews speak for themselves. That it's definitely not a scam. It's
right.
I've had people cry on my shoulder because their roof's been leaking. They didn't know what to do. They didn't have the money to pay for it. But now this was an opportunity. And what I tell them is that they've been paying for it all along. They're paying their premiums every month. It's just now time that the insurance company takes care of these people. That's what the insurance is there for from the beginning.
Right. So, and beyond this, I mean, there's, I'm sure, tons of insights you could lend and people will give and things like that on kind of like demeanor and sales tactics and presentation to the homeowner when you're actually there. We won't necessarily cover that today, but I mean, that in and of itself is worth a podcast. Kind of how do you build trust and likability with the homeowner in the first 7 seconds, or even the first literally second that they open the door or see you, et cetera. I mean, that's a huge part of it. But again,
absolutely,
that's worth another show. But I think the thing that is worth, again, pivoting to is basically, okay, so you help this one guy go from 0 to, and kind of what was the figure on the first year? I mean, it almost sounds fake and made up, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
So I've worked with a couple different companies. I've actually worked with 3 or 4 companies now that I've seen giant leaps in their numbers. One company in particular, they were just starting out. I don't even know if they had sold one roof at that point. They may have sold a few retail, but it was I don't believe over 250,000. And within that first year, I think they did north of $9 million. So just incredible amounts of selling. Another company that started out, I know they were doing around 200, 300, probably $1,000. We took them up to north of $4 million in sales. And it just opened the door to that ability to go get it. Again, moving from that defensive sale to an offensive sale. You're in control of that thing. You're in control of that client moving forward. So, and it's not stopping there. I'm dealing with another contractor right now that's hired me for consulting work. Same thing. Just purely the consulting aspect, just showing them, opening their eyes to the situation has taken them from 0 to 100 so fast.
Yeah.
And mind you, some of these companies that I've done work with, they've done $9 million in sales their first year. They keep on going their second year, third year, fourth year.
Right.
These numbers don't slow down; they double.
Right. You said 900,000, right?
900,000
million.
Did I say 900 million?
No. I'm just saying, it sounds like make believe, man. It just
Right. Oh, the numbers. Right.
People listening are gonna laugh. Hopefully this moment go like, no, he must have said 400 or 900. No,
Million.
4 million. $9 million in sales. And I think one of the biggest things to also point out about, you mentioned this 2 or 3 times now, this offensive versus defensive mindset. I think most people kind of generally get like, yeah, okay, offensive mindset. But I feel like, and I'd love to see your insights here, but, by offensive mindset, I think what you're really referring to is that defensive selling looks like the homeowner calling you going out to deliver a bid, an estimate, an inspection, etc. And then 3 other roofing contractors come do the same thing within that same week. And now you're constantly being positioned against the other guy, right? Vetted against that company. You're in a pool of bids. It's much harder, right? You've got to really, really stand out from the crowd. Whereas in this offensive insurance-based selling, if you're the first one to get to the homeowner, or even if you're not, but especially if the first one to get to the homeowner, I mean, they don't hear anything else after you tell them and they believe you, hey, this roof that typically would cost you truly a $15,000 cost or investment has now been brought down, 10x, 10 times less than what you would have originally had to pay, or maybe not even hardly at all, right? I mean, so it's just an incredible sales pitch. I mean, it's like free, it's candy. It's like free selling.
You did a great job explaining that, and that's exactly right. I mean, what part of the problem is, I mean, these poor contractors, especially in these retail sales, a lot of the times they're getting pitted against each other. So they're being asked to knock down their profit margins to the point of barely getting by. The beauty of insurance is you're not being pitted against another contractor. You're explaining if the roof is approved, if there's damage there, and the insurance company is going to pay for it, you're entitled to everything that goes in there, and it's not coming out of the homeowner's pocket. And it's your job is to make sure that the insurance company pays what they're owed, what the homeowner is owed for that roof. And that's it. There's no one else involved there. You're not going to, the insurance company or the homeowner, I guess, in a sense, is not going to take that money and now divvy it up and try to find the lowest bid. It doesn't work that way. The carrier, the insurance companies will pay for what is owed, and you will get a fair market price for that. Right. The profit margins in roofing, everybody knows they can be exceptional. Right. The problem is when you're being pitted against 3 other companies, they drive those prices down to the point where when homeowners aren't making money, it's just not fair. Or right. Sorry, when contractors aren't making money, it's just not fair.
Right. And I feel like just quickly, we're gonna switch into talking and really unpacking highlights of the process. How does someone actually get into this system? How would they get started? We'll talk about that in just a minute. But just in case if anyone is listening and they're wondering, like not quite grasping yet what the sales power involved in this is. In other words, like how powerful the pitch becomes to the homeowner. Let's just put it into another industry. I mean, it'd be like, for example, I run a roofing marketing company, and it'd be like if I could go to roofers and let's just pick a particular product kind of marketing, which is website design. It's like me being able to go to roofers and basically saying, how you would typically pay X for a website, let's just say $5,000. Well, today, because you've been paying into this, pool of marketing dollars, or, some insurance marketing company, you're actually only going to have to pay 0 or 500. Do you want to get a website that's basically better than the one you have now, or at least the same quality for 10 times less the price? I mean, it's just an incredible, I'm envious, I wish I could. Who doesn't want to be able to sell with that pitch?
Well, and exactly. I mean, when you hear, it's funny maybe I've just become desensitized to it because I hear it so much, but when you explain it in that mentality, it's easy for people to see why it sounds too good to be true, right? I
Right.
mean, if you're told that, you might be like, okay, where's the catch? What's the catch here?
Right.
But that's not what's going on. I mean, and it's a market that's definitely starting to grow, because people are realizing it. The problem is nobody likes to be the new guy on the block. Nobody likes to not have all the answers. And there's a lot of these roofers, a lot of these roofing contractors out there who they've been doing it the same old way for the past 20, 30 years. And this is how we do it. But unfortunately, what's happening, and coronavirus is a perfect example. The world's changing. Technology's changing. The way things are accomplished are changing. So there's this mentality of, we've been doing this for 20, 30 years. Okay, well, guess what? What if we just open this idea, this possibility up to you, and we're able to teach you how to do this? Would you like to increase your sales numbers by 50%, by 200%? By 500%? Those are real numbers that can actually be achieved. But again, it goes all back to what we've been talking about from the very get-go, which is mindset.
Right.
Open their mind.
And the great irony, I'm sure we can both agree, is, the companies that are, whether they're old school or not old school, who are doing retail and crushing it, are only going to crush it 10 times the amount in insurance, right? So, I mean, if you're already crushing retail, you must be a good salesman, because you're
out of every company.
products.
Yes, exactly. Out of every company who I have either been hired out as a consultant to the roofing company, or my public adjusting firm has had a mutual client with a contractor, the ones that absolutely destroy that industry, or are destroying this industry, that are crushing the sales, are typically those that were excelling at retail sales. It's not an either or. They can still do retail sales. Something we haven't even touched on, and I don't even know if this could be an entire subject in and of itself, is this. The insurance company is paying for the roof that the client currently has on their home. So if they're paying for that, you can still upgrade them. You can still implement that sales process in giving them a better product. So, well, just to give some numbers, right? Let's say a roof, and just to keep it simple, this is obviously our very low numbers, but it's just straightforward. If their roof that they currently have on the house costs $10,000, and the insurance company is paying for the $10,000, well, if you upgrade them $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, they're getting a deal, because they're only paying a fraction of the cost of what their current roof has, but they're getting a roof system put on their roof that is actually far beyond what they had prior. So you can still sell them, and it's a win-win for everybody. It's a 360 win.
Right. And just to tap into as well, I mean, that's an awesome metaphor or example that you've just given right there, because it is so simple. And just to continue to unpack that, and again, we're going to move right into the process, but regarding the, okay, it costs $10,000, they get it for free. It's now tapping into, everybody loves, sales-wise, psychology-wise, to feel like they're getting a deal. So when you have a homeowner who just feels like they got that kind of deal, they just got a $10,000 steal of a deal, they're going to be that much more sort of relaxed, loose with their wallet, excited to sort of get, not just the Civic of roofs, but the Ferrari, right?
Absolutely.
They want that on their house, especially if it's one that they're going to live in for a long time or pass down to family members and things like that. And so again, it's candy kind of selling, right? And also, when you make the add-ons and when you make those extra sales, that's extra kind of fat profit margin, right? Extra healthy profit margins that are coming back to you from there. So
absolutely.
Just transitioning. So, all right. So we've got somebody, maybe people, especially who are listening on the show, retail roofers, they're just getting into roofing. They're just starting a roofing company, or maybe they're crushing it. Maybe they've been well established as a retail roofer and doing types like that. They're hearing this, maybe their mindset's starting to change, be swayed a little bit, and they're thinking, I want to give this a shot. How would they do that? What are the first steps, the next steps for them getting involved in the roofing insurance?
Well, it's funny you say that. It's something, I think part of the problem, we kind of touched on it before, is that there's a veil there that a lot of these roofers can't see. They don't go for it because they don't understand it, but they don't really know where to find information to understand it. So that's a part of the problem, part of something I want to fix, because a lot of these roofing companies that are doing it don't want to share all their secrets with competition. So which is totally understandable. But from our aspect, what we do that I think is different from most public adjusters is since we have a very high focus on storm related claims and exterior claims, is we were able to help them. So if there's any roofers out there listening to this that would be interested, Jeremy, I'm sure we'll be sharing this with the podcast, but our contact information, me and my team would love to be able to assist you and kind of point you in that direction. Because there's a lot to it. Obviously we're just scratching the surface. So in order to delve deep into that, it's going to become a master at it. You're going to have to learn a little bit more about each aspect of it. But I will tell you this, companies are jumping into this left and right, and they're kind of figuring it out as they go. It's not, everything about it is not rocket science. So it's not something that you're not going to school to become a doctor until you can start operating on somebody. You can kind of learn the basics and then practice them, and you'll learn as you go.
Right.
So it's not, and I'm saying that in a sense of, I don't want anyone listening to this right now to be discouraged thinking, well, yeah, okay, I have to go back to school to learn this stuff again. And that's a waste of my time when I could just be selling retail roofs. It's not that. You can be running within a week and crushing the insurance restoration business.
Right. I think well said. And let's try to, as we kind of finish out here, let's try to pack a ton of value into kind of these final 5 minutes. Basically very much focused on, we've talked a ton about mindset, the story, how you got into it, but also how roofers can get into it. And again, mindset, exposing themselves to it, learning more, but let's pack a ton of value into these final 5 minutes. So let's keep the answers tight, and I'm going to keep my questions tight so that people can really begin to get a clear sense of the roadmap. Like, how does this work? So number one, once somebody has gone past the mindset phase, in other words, you know what, used to be a veil there, used to think, be big time skeptical. Now I'm interested. Now I'm interested in learning more and implementing this into my business. I think the next question becomes, or a good one to ask is, can they do it themselves? Or should they talk to a public adjuster and work with one? And just quickly, what's the difference in going kind of both those routes, and what are the advantages to both?
Well, I think, okay, great question. I think, yes, to answer your question, there's tons and tons of roofing contractors operating, doing this kind of independently of public adjusters. But I think that there's different aspects there. Legally, roofers cannot talk on insurance policy. However, you got to make sure that you got a good public adjuster involved. A lot of these public adjusters don't like roofing claims. So, they like to stick to mainly the fire water type claims. So again, if their client wants to hire a public adjuster, they can definitely work with that public adjuster in a capacity to help. And maybe that's a good learning curve. But I think there's you got to make sure that the PA who's kind of steering the ship knows what he's doing, because they're the ones in control at that point.
Right. And so by way of analogy, just to kind of, so boom, there's the answer. And beyond that, in other words, the DIY route maybe will, in a sense, some of the advantages are it saves you a little bit of money because you don't have to pay a cut or a portion to the public adjuster. But the headache and the disadvantage is that you don't have a guide helping you through the process. And number two, you have to now deal with it. You have to have systems and processes in place in your roofing company versus outsourcing that and letting somebody else take care of it and make a smooth transaction. If you hire a public adjuster, you disadvantage, again, lose a little bit of the cut or lose a little bit of the money. And that even has some exceptions, because sometimes the public adjuster can get you more than what your roofer or roofing team could have gotten themselves. And beyond that, again, the advantage is you've got a guy and a team, and they take care of it, and they do it right, and they have even a little bit more legal insurance, kind of sway with the insurance companies. Anything else to add to that?
No. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think, if you looked at any of our companies that we've done work with in the past or present still, or even, I guess, from our firm standpoint, I get hired on both ends, right? So I get hired by homeowners who want a public adjuster running the claim, and we work with their contractor in a lot of sense. And if we're able to clear that contractor's plate of dealing with all the insurance part of it, it gives them the opportunity to do what they do best, which is sell. So they can typically go get another job, and they get one more job out of it. Our percentage becomes pretty much null and void. The new job, the ability to get one more job pays for a tenfold. So we've not really had a problem with that. But so I get hired out as a consultant for other roofing companies just for that, who want to do it themselves and want to learn it. It's kind of you kind of pick your poison. There's different aspects to it, which I could run on forever. So if individuals are interested in that, they should definitely give me a shout, because I can definitely speak on this way more in depthly.
Yep. And I think it's kind of a closing thought here, but basically, just quickly, if you would, let's say a roofer is interested, he's gotten past the mindset of, I'm interested in this, but he's maybe still skeptical of, I don't need a public adjuster. I don't need the middleman, my teammate helping me out. We're going to do this ourselves. We're going to do it in-house. That's fine. I mean, people can have that mindset. There's nothing wrong with that mindset. And if that was their mindset, what would be the next step for them that you would encourage them to take? Like, where would they learn? If they wanted to do the DIY route, where would they go next to learn more about this stuff?
Well, I mean, again, not to plug myself. I know there's tons of great courses out there and tons of great teachers out there on sales processes and how to increase selling. But if you wanted to learn more about that individual, the whole process as a whole, I guess, I mean, for us, we do a lot of education with contractors on this information. So I would say give us a shout. We would love to point them in the right direction. And if aside from that, if they wanted to do something, if they're not local, or they want to find something else or closer by, find a public adjuster, find somebody who kind of knows the process. I think other roofing companies are probably not going to want to open up too much about their secrets and their tricks of the trade. But finding that information it can be difficult to do because of that reason. So
it seems like basically there's a couple of options for the person who wants to do it themselves. Number one would be, just sort of at the end of the day, it all starts with education, right? So maybe you take a public adjuster out to lunch, you take some roofing company owner, if you have that great of a relationship with them kind of in your area, and you take them out to lunch and you learn more about how they're doing it. Or other ideas would be at trade shows and conferences and industry events.
Yeah, there are some great conferences out there.
Network with those people who are already doing that. There's plenty of those conferences. But to pivot and this is a plug to you, but not because of any other reason than just whether it was Larry sitting in front of myself or any public adjuster who has done this before, who has expertly has worked on thousands of claims in the same capacity. There are two ways that you can kind of get to the end zone. There's the way where, of course, you do it yourself and you bumble and fall, and you're probably going to fall out of bounds a bunch. You're going to get sacked. You're going to trip. You're going to stumble, and you might still get there. Or there's the way where you follow the path of somebody who has already done it, and you save yourself a ton of time and a ton of failure and a ton of effort, and you still reach the end zone. You just reached it a lot faster than you would have if you did it yourself. Both Absolutely. Are great routes. Both are possible, but that's the benefit of calling somebody like Larry or somebody who's done it before and picking their brain about it. Anything else to add? And then we'll kind of wrap up here with how to get in touch and how people might actually, let's go ahead and do that. So, basically it sounds like at this point, definitely willing to answer the questions that roofers and contractors would have about this. How can they get in touch with you? How can people kind of find more about Larry and All Claims Pro? And again, get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can go to our website at www.allclaimspro.com. You could email me straight at LURGO. That's my first name, first letter of my first name and my last name, Lawrence Urgo, at allclaimspro.com. So again, that's LURGO at allclaimspro.com. You can follow me on Instagram at just Lawrence Urgo. I put up different content on there. You can feel free to direct message me on there, and I respond to pretty much all those messages. So again, my Instagram handle is just Lawrence Urgo, LAWRENCEURGO, and direct message me on there, and I would be happy to further communicate with you guys on how we can help you. Yeah, I think that last point that you touched on is very, very important and very key. I'm reading a lot of books right now on different things with success and looking for just some different personal help books or mentorship aspects. And there's many different things. It kind of falls into what you're saying. A lot of people make a lot of money, and then the hard part is figuring out how do you keep that money? How do you multiply that money? You know, how do you not lose that money once you make it? Because that making it's just the first leg of the race. Same with this kind of stuff. You know, I think mentorship in general is huge. I think learning is huge. Self-education is massive, and that education comes from a lot of these conferences, and the networking aspect, and kind of tying it all back into saying yes and moving forward. You know, say yes to those meetings, those one-on-ones, those networking groups, those conferences, those masterminds. That's how you're going to really learn. That's how you're going to dominate the industry, and whether it's roofing sales, insurance restoration, or anything else.
I think that's awesome. And I think a great place, to kind of wrap up here. I mean, basically at the end of the day, as Larry just shared, say yes, have an open mind about it. Say yes to the opportunity. Say yes to exploring it more. Say yes to having conversations about it. Say yes to educating yourself more rather than just turning a blind eye. And say yes to giving it a shot. This is a modern day gold mine of opportunity here in the roofing restoration, insurance restoration business as it relates to, again, roofs. So say yes, say yes. Larry, it's been awesome having you on the show, man. I think a ton of value here brought today. And again, if anybody wants to reach out, it's allclaimspro.com, LURGO at allclaimspro.com is the email address, and also active on social media. So again, Larry, thanks for being on the show, brother.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. It's been a pleasure, and we'll definitely chat further on this. I'm looking forward to any questions from you guys. And again, Jeremy, I can't thank you enough for having me.
Awesome, brother. All right, sounds good.
Take care. Bye-bye.